Hello friends, I welcome you again to this channel Dr. Vipul V. Kapoor. Let's learn. Friends, in this channel we are studying English language and literature. Friends, in this video today we are going to discuss Christopher Marlowe as the most important dramatist, as the forerunner of Renaissance, as the most representative dramatist of the Elizabethan Age. In our previous videos, one of our previous videos, we have discussed Christopher Marlowe as one of the members of the group which is known as University Wits. University Wits is a group of writers, who have contributed rich literature to the Elizabethan society during the 16th century, and Christopher Marlowe was the head of this group called University Wits. In this video, we are going to discuss Christopher Marlowe's contribution to English literature. Friends, some of the critics believe that Marlowe is the father of English tragedy. Some critics do not unanimously agree with this idea, but still the fact remains that it was Marlowe from whom Shakespeare has learnt lessons of writing drama. And that's why, some scholars believe that Marlowe is the true father of English tragedies. Marlowe is also considered as the forerunner of Renaissance. Renaissance is a French term which means rebirth, and this movement of Renaissance entered into England during the 15th and 16th century, which actually began from Italy, and then it travelled to France and then came to England. The movement of Renaissance means many things. Because of this movement, the spirit of adventure was found among the people of England. Love for beauty, individualism, materialism, these were some of the important characteristics of Renaissance which you find among the people, in the society of England during the 16th century, during the times of Queen Elizabeth. And Christopher Marlowe, who was born in 1564 and died in 1593, became the true forerunner of Renaissance. Christopher Marlowe, though he lived a very short life, but within this short span of life, he has given rich contribution to English literature. Marlowe is also considered as the most representative dramatist of the Elizabethan Age. Friends, if you remember, in one of my previous videos, I have said that John Dryden once wrote that every age has its one genius who becomes the mouthpiece of his age. I repeat it again. John Dryden once said that every age has its one genius who becomes the mouthpiece of its age. And definitely, undoubtedly, we may say that Christopher Marlowe was the mouthpiece of his age, because he has represented all great qualities or characteristics of his times, of his society, of the people whom he observed during his lifetime. And that's why, critics call him the most important dramatist, the most representative dramatist of the Elizabethan Age. Christopher Marlowe, who was born before who was born in the same year in which William Shakespeare was born, is also considered as the predecessor of Shakespeare, because Shakespeare started writing his plays later in his life. Before that, Marlowe already had published his plays. And that's why, there is much influence of Marlowe's tragedies on Shakespeare's tragedies. And that's why, the scholars, the critics believe that Marlowe is the most influential writer and teacher of William Shakespeare. And that's why, we believe that Marlowe is a very important author, writer, playwright, dramatist of the Elizabethan Age. Friends, let's have a look at the major works, the important works of Christopher Marlowe. In the initial stage of his career, Marlowe published one poem. The title of that poem is The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. This is a pastoral poem. Pastoral poem means the poem which is based on the life of the villages, life of the shepherds. So this pastoral poem was first published by Christopher Marlowe. Then he published the tragedy of Dido, then Queen of Carthage, Tamburlaine Part 1 and Part 2, the Jew of Malta, Edward II, Dr. Faustus, and the massacre at Paris. These are the important works written by Christopher Marlowe. But we as the students of tragedy, we as the students of drama, when we are studying Christopher Marlowe, then his 4 tragedies are eye-catching. The readers are most impressed by his 4 great tragedies. It is just like William Shakespeare's 4 tragedies, Othello, Macbeth, King Lear, and Hamlet. In the same manner, Marlowe is best known by his 4 great tragedies, namely Tamburlaine, the Jew of Malta, Edward II, and the tragical history of Dr. Faustus. It is in these 4 tragedies that we find the spirit of Renaissance, the spirit of the Elizabethan society. His tragedies are bubbling with the spirit of Renaissance, the spirit of the Elizabethan people. Before we discuss Marlowe's contribution to English drama, let's first of all have a look at a kind of comparison or the relationship between Marlowe and Shakespeare. Marlowe was a dramatist who deeply influenced the theatre of Renaissance literary period with his blank verse. Friends, Marlowe invented his own new style of writing the poetic plays, and that was known as blank verse, which was later on adopted by a host of writers, many writers who followed him, who imitated Marlowe. So the first most important contribution as the students of literature we must know is that Marlowe's contribution to English literature regarding the invention of blank verse. He wrote with great intensity, and most importantly, his villain heroes are very impressive and eye-catching. His heroes, as I told you, that he wrote 4 great tragedies, and in these 4 great tragedies you find 4 heroes, but they are villain heroes. Either they are criminals, or they are antisocial, or they are doing something wrong in their life. Though they are the protagonists, they are the most important characters in these tragedies, but still, they behave like villains. It is just like the character of Macbeth. If you have read William Shakespeare's tragedy Macbeth, then in Macbeth, who is the protagonist of the play of this tragedy, who is also considered as a villain in the play. So, this concept of villain heroes was first given by Christopher Marlowe. Swinburne, a very important, outstanding poet of English literature, he has observed about Marlowe, and he wrote that, the father of English tragedy and the creator of English blank verse was therefore also the teacher and guide of Shakespeare. So Swinburne also accepts this idea, and he agrees to the fact that Marlowe in fact was the teacher of William Shakespeare. He accepted the fact that it was Marlowe who invented the art of writing drama, they invented the art of blank verse in English language. And that's why, Swinburne calls him the father of English tragedy. In fact, Shakespeare and Marlowe both wrote plays for Lord Strange Acting Company. There was one acting company, which was popular during the Elizabethan Age, Lord Strange Acting Company. Marlowe wrote his plays for this company, and in the same manner, Shakespeare also wrote his plays for the same company. And both influenced each other. Shakespeare influenced in some matters, Shakespeare influenced Marlowe, and in some matters, Marlowe influenced William Shakespeare. And not only this, Shakespeare favored Marlowe's use of blank verse in his tragedies. Now let's have a look at what kind of tragedies were written by Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe. Marlowe was the dramatist of Renaissance period par excellence, and his plays are an epitome of what the Renaissance people felt and lived. What was felt? What was the true spirit of the people during the Elizabethan Age? That has been fetched into the plays of Christopher Marlowe. And Marlowe touches almost all aspects of Renaissance, whether it is the spirit of individualism, whether it is the spirit of materialism, or whether it is the spirit of love for adventure, love for beauty, or whatever. All such things are, fantastically, artistically presented by Christopher Marlowe in his tragedies. His tragedies, in fact, reflect the Renaissance spirit and revolves around the central personality who is consumed by lust for power. Most of his characters are presented as highly ambitious characters, lustful characters, crazy after materialistic things, crazy after power. Marlowe's tragedies are one-man type tragedy in which one character is the most important character, other are not at all important. So, say for example in the tragical history of Dr. Faustus is the main character. In the Jew of Malta, Barabbas is the main character. In all his tragedies, there is one single character who gains too much importance in the play. So that's why his tragedies are known as one-man type tragedies. And the same thing you find in William Shakespeare also. In William Shakespeare's tragedies, Macbeth, the important character. In the tragedy called Hamlet, Hamlet is the important character. In the tragedy called Othello, Othello is the important character. So in short, we can say that Marlowe's tragedies and Shakespeare's tragedies both have some similarity, because both these tragedies are character-oriented tragedies. I repeat it again, both tragedies written by Shakespeare and Marlowe are character-oriented tragedies in which one character controls the actions. He dominates over rest of the characters. This one character dominates over all the remaining rest of the characters and drafts them by his towering personalities. Let's begin with Marlowe's ideal of Renaissance man. What kind of Renaissance British persons were existing in England, or what was Marlowe's ideal of Renaissance man? That is pictured by Marlowe in the character of Tamburlaine. Tamburlaine, who is the Scythian conqueror. In Marlowe's vision, the men of Renaissance were expected to be of stature tall and a sprightly fashion, his lofty brows in folds. You mind you these words, his lofty brows in folds, means kind of a gesture. He gives minute description of his ideal man, ideal Renaissance man that Marlowe had envisioned. Lofty brows in folds means very strong people, strong-minded people and angry people. Lofty brows in folds. The material values of Renaissance people, of the Renaissance England, are very well expressed by Christopher Marlowe in his tragedies. The pleasure of the earth and material values of life, which the men of the Renaissance held dear, are given full scope in Tamburlaine, where the dramatist writes these lines as you can see on the screen. In those times, the earthly pleasures were given more importance than the divine pleasures, the spiritual pleasure. Tamburlaine, in this tragedy, he speaks these lines. Let's try and understand these lines. A god is not so glorious as a king. I think the pleasure they enjoy in heaven cannot compare with kingly joys on earth. Tamburlaine says that he compares, the Tamburlaine who is himself a king, he compares himself with the god. And he says a god is not so glorious as a king. That means he wants to say that I am greater and more glorious than the god even. A god is not so glorious as a king. I think the pleasure they enjoy in heaven cannot compare with kingly joys on earth. He says that the pleasures that gods are enjoying in heaven can never be compared with the pleasures that I am enjoying here on this earth. Material values are given more importance during the Renaissance period, during the Elizabethan Age. And this is what Marlowe has very well expressed, realistically expressed in his play The Tamburlaine. The spirit of learning was also an outstanding feature of Renaissance man, of Renaissance society. In Marlowe's second play, second tragedy, Tragical History of Dr. Faustus. This is the full title of the tragedy. In short, people call it Dr. Faustus. In his second play, The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus, he presents a man of learning and a man who is running mad after the pursuit of worldly power. Dr. Faustus, who is the central character, the protagonist of this tragedy, he has doctored himself, he has mastered himself in so many different fields, in the field of history, in the field of logic, in the field of magic, black magic and all, in the field of philosophy. He learnt and learnt and learnt too much. So he had a craze of learning, and this was the spirit of the Elizabethan people, which is presented by Marlowe in his Dr. Faustus. Dr. Faustus has a craze for learning, and at the same time he had a craze for worldly power. He wanted to become the most powerful human being on the earth. He wanted to achieve divine magic, through his learning. Dr. Faustus is the master of varied knowledge, ranging from philosophy to economics to logic and what not. But still, he was dissatisfied with what knowledge he received. And that's why, he starts practicing necromancy. Necromancy means black magic. He starts learning black magic. He starts practicing this black magic, necromancy. For what? To acquire the worldly power, to become the most powerful person on this earth. So great is his love for power and pleasure that he sells his own soul to the devil Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles is the name of the devil who is presented as a character in this tragedy. Dr. Faustus sells his own soul in order to get power and pleasure, in order to achieve his dream of getting power and pleasure, to enjoy the worldly, the earthly pleasures. And this is what the Renaissance people were during those times. Love for power and material pleasure is also reflected in these words which you can see on the screen. These words are spoken by Dr. Faustus himself. Dr. Faustus says, "Oh, what a world of profit and delight is promised to the studious artisan. All things that move between the quiet poles shall be at my command." You can imagine, what kind of the individualism was there, what kind of materialism was existing during the Elizabethan age. Dr. Faustus imagines that once I get command on this earth, then he imagines, oh, what a world of profit and delight, of power, of pleasure, of omnipotence. Omnipotence means the most powerful, to get the power over everything in this world. All things that move between the quiet poles means the whole universe which is moving shall be at my command. Dr. Faustus wanted to command the whole universe. Such craze for power, for learning, for pleasure is very well presented by Marlowe in the character of Dr. Faustus. And these were the characteristics of the Elizabethan society. Not only this, love for richness or materialism is also found in one of his plays, The Jew of Malta. Before I discuss this, I remember two more lines spoken by Mortimer. Mortimer is another character of the play The Edward II. In this play, Mortimer says, "The prince I rule, the queen do I command, the proudest lord salute me as I pass. I sill, I conceal, I do what I will." Craze for power and pleasure. Mortimer says, "The prince I rule, the queen do I command." He wants to command the proudest lords, the greatest kings of this universe. He wants to rule the prince, the greatest princes of this universe. Salute me as I pass. The proudest lord salute me as I pass. I sill, I conceal, I do what I will. This is called individualism. This individual spirit, the spirit of individualism, is also reflected in Marlowe's Edward II, one of the most important historical tragedies written by him. But let's come back to this point, love for richness. In his third tragedy, The Jew of Malta, we have another expression of the love for wealth and precious stones, which fired the imagination and vision of the Renaissance people. Here, the important character, the protagonist of this tragedy, The Jew of Malta, is Barabbas. Barabbas is presented as a typical representative of his society, who has love for wealth. He employs all his energy and power to accumulate infinite richness of the whole world. Barabbas had an ambition in his mind and heart. He had an ambition to collect all the richness of the world in the single room. He had the vision, he had the dream, ambition to collect beds of fiery opals, sapphires, hard topaz, green emeralds, rubies and diamonds and all. These are the most precious stones, and Barabbas had a craze to collect these precious stones in a single room. This is called, the love for richness, or this is called materialism. Friends, another important characteristic of the Renaissance society, of the Elizabethan society, was the spirit of adventure. We know that at the end of 15th century, Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus, they were considered as the important adventurers of Europe. Vasco came to India, and Christopher Columbus, went to America. He discovered America. It was with this discovery, that the spirit of adventure began in Europe and also in England. People were highly adventurous by nature. And that's why Mortimer in Edward II, another important tragedy written by Marlowe, in which Mortimer is an important character, the protagonist, the tragic hero. When he was on his deathbed, he was on the verge of dying. He speaks these last lines. He addresses these lines to his wife, the queen. He says that, "Farewell, fair queen, weep not for Mortimer, that scorns the world and as a traveler goes to discover countries yet unknown." So beautiful lines written by Marlowe. Mortimer is not so sad. He knows that I am going to die after some minutes, after some moments. But he says that that so what, I am dying, because I should not grieve at my declining fall. Though I am declining, I should not be sad, I should not be disappointed. Why? Because after death, I am going to conquer, I am going to explore the regions which are yet unexplored. This is the spirit of adventure, beautifully, poetically presented by Christopher Marlowe in the words of Mortimer. This is the spirit of adventure. Love for beauty. This was also another important characteristic of the Elizabethan age. We are discussing Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe, as the representative dramatist of Elizabethan age, or as the forerunner of Renaissance. And these are the characteristics of Renaissance: love for beauty, love for adventure, materialism, individualism, love for learning, craze for learning. All these are the qualities, characteristics of Renaissance and the Elizabethan society, and they are very well reflected, realistically reflected by Christopher Marlowe in his plays. And that's why Marlowe is considered as the most representative dramatist of his age and as the forerunner of Renaissance. Love for beauty. Dr. Faustus, let's again come back to this tragedy. Dr. Faustus, in this character, we find how British people, how the British men and women, they had a craze for beauty. Dr. Faustus, these lines are very popular among the lovers of English literature. Dr. Faustus says, was this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burned the topless towers of Ilium? Sweet Helen, make me mortal with a kiss. Her lips suck forth my soul, see where it flies. Come, Helen, come, give me my soul again, make me mortal with a kiss. So beautiful poetic lines. In fact, friends, remember these lines. These are the immortal lines written by Christopher Marlowe in the tragical history of Dr. Faustus. Dr. Faustus, who at the end of his life, he knows that I am going to die. Mephistopheles has arrived. Mephistopheles, the devil, is going to snatch away the soul from Dr. Faustus' body. But before that, he speaks these lines. This shows the love for beauty. Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burned the topless towers of Ilium? Sweet Helen, make me mortal with a kiss. Her lips suck forth my soul, see where it flies. Come, Helen, come, give me my soul again. Dr. Faustus seeks heavenly grace in Helen's lips, which can at best offer only earthly pleasure. Even these lips cannot save him from the devil. This line suggests that people had this love for beauty, beautiful women. So, friends, at the end of this presentation, let's summarize all the things that Christopher Marlowe, considered as the father of English tragedy by Swinburne, is the most representative dramatist of the Elizabethan age. He is the forerunner of Renaissance. It is through his 4 tragedies, namely Dr. Faustus, the Jew of Malta, Edward II, through these 4 tragedies, he has given the realistic picture of the Renaissance people, of the Renaissance society, of the Elizabethan age. And that's why he is the most important, he is the mouthpiece of his age. Christopher Marlowe was in fact you know, he was himself the lover of all these values called, namely individualism, materialism and all, which were held dear by the people of Renaissance. Friends, here we come to the end of this presentation. If you really liked this video, I request you all to please like, share and subscribe this channel. So friends, I'll come up with some new topics on English literature in the next video. So stay tuned, goodbye, stay safe, stay home. Thank you very much.